right, we're going to get started here and focus on something that I like to call stop grunting, start communicating. This came to me a couple years ago when I was really trying to help guys for the first time communicate. And I thought about you know, all of the hard parts of communicating, especially when it comes to being in a toxic situation with your wife, especially when it comes to having hard conversations. You see, like men's brains are wired differently from women's. Our brains are literally wired more for logic and kind of very linear programming, whereas women's brains tend to be much more circular, much more emotionally based. And so because of that, they're able to articulate feelings much easier than men are just by the sheer nature of how they're wired. It doesn't mean they're better communicators. That just means they're able to articulate more from a heart-centered or emotion-centered approach than with men. You ever watch any reality shows? I like watching try maybe Real Housewives or Selling Sunset or any of these shows on Netflix and watch how the women communicate with each other. Watch how they talk to each other. You'll notice that one woman might be sharing her feelings about this person and how this person did this to her. And she's like, "Oh, honey, you're so right." And yeah, I can't believe she would do that to you. And gosh, that's just so wrong. And all of this stuff. And it's all coming from sort of this place of empathy. And like men, we listen to a woman and we just see complaining, we just hear nagging. We're just like, why don't you just fix it? Right. And like that's what we want to do is we want to fix it. So ultimately, what happens is we end up in these places where she's like, "You're not hearing me, you're not doing this, you're not doing that." And we have to understand that. But instead of understanding that, we take it as attack and we feel attacked. And when we feel attacked and when we feel under this sort of pressure and this weight, what happens? We start to grunt, right? Anybody ever felt that before where it's like you can't quite get out? So you're like, "Ah, fuck," right? And you're just frustrated because you want to say something, you want to communicate, or then you'll just say the thing that comes to your mind, and it's usually not a good thing. It's usually a very like bad thing, and then now you fucked up. Now her feelings are hurt. Now she's crying, and it just becomes this whole toxic system of the way you guys have dealt with things. And over time, that's part of what erodes the marriage. The marriage erodes because you are the type of guy, just like most men out there, who doesn't know how to articulate and communicate his feelings, but only knows how to grunt, how to just, and say, fuck, and hit doors and punch holes in walls. All that is coming from a place of anger that doesn't know how to be processed in a healthy way. And so we've got to fight through that. I've seen this with guys so many times. I was the type of guy also where this is like me, right? Like it didn't matter what I was going through with my ex-wife. It was just like she would yell at me and I would then be offended. It's called, taking someone else's offense and being offended at their offense. You might not be mad at her and then all of a sudden she's mad at you and then you're now mad at her. And it's like we end up in these toxic cycles of anger over dumb shit. She's mad at you and instead of hearing her and understanding what she's going through, you get mad back, right? And so this is kind of what happens, what I call trauma brain, where it's like we go through this process and it's like trauma from usually our childhood, the way our parents treated us, maybe bullies along the road. And so we have all this trauma that's in the sort of back of our brain. And instead of being able to relate to people from the frontal cortex or the frontal lobe of your brain, we go back here in the amygdala area. And this is where all the trauma it lives inside of your brain. Your body has trauma everywhere. So let's say you might be just normal, nothing's happening, nothing's pissing you off. And all of a sudden, some guy cuts you off. You feel disrespected. And when you feel disrespected, you honk your horn, "Fuck you, motherfucker." Right? Where's that coming from? The amygdala. You're responding out of that because of that trauma that's there. And so the same thing happens in a marriage. The same thing happens in communication with your wife. She says something to you, and the first things might be fine. You don't really matter. But then, man, she says something that's just so poignant because we know how to push each other's buttons. And she pushes that right button on you, and you're like, "Bah, nah, nah, nah," and you go off her, you scream at her, or you shut down completely. "Oh, fine, fuck you then," and you take your ball and leave. And this is what we do. And I think that men just really have to come to grips with is how do I want to communicate? Is that the type of communicator I want to be? Do I want to settle for that, or do I want to be a good communicator? Do I want to be a healthy communicator? And I think that's what you all need to make your decision of right now, even in this moment. because you're here on this call, you're at work, you're doing whatever, but you're taking time out to listen to this because you feel like there's value here for you and potentially your future. But listening to this isn't going to do shit for you unless you actually apply what I'm talking about, which means you coming out of your comfort zone and making massive action or taking massive action. Without action, none of this shit matters. You can listen to me till I'm blue in the face. You can listen to all 185 of my episodes of my podcast. You can listen to every training I've got. You could be in my program. Doesn't matter what you do. You could listen. But if you don't actually fucking take action, you are wasting your time. All you're doing is tickling your ears and making yourself feel better and seeming like you're actually doing the work, all in the while sabotaging everything in the relationship because you're not actually willing to be humble. You know how many times I talk to a guy on a daily basis who comes to me and is like, man, I want help. I want to do all these things. Like, great, this is what it's going to take to do that. And they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I don't know if I'm ready to make those changes. I don't know if I can make those changes. I don't know. And it really comes back to just people are just full of shit. Like most people listening to this call right now, I'm just going to call it for what it is, are full of shit. Most of you right now that are even in here are full of shit. You're not willing to actually make sacrifice. You're not actually willing to make changes to become the man you are. So it's like, why are you even wasting your time? Why are you even showing up to this thing? Because it's free? You have to ask yourself these deeper questions. I'm about to show you what you need to do. But before I talk about what you need to do, it's imperative that you understand the reality of your situation. And the reality is that your wife is cheating on you, your wife doesn't want to be with you, or whatever's going on there. That's your reality. The truth is, you are responsible for how you show up. You are responsible for how you communicate with her. You're responsible for what kind of man you are. You're responsible for what kind of father you are. You are responsible for those things. Nobody else is. I can teach you till I'm blue in the face, all these things. You can listen to all my stuff. But if you're not willing to take action, why are you here? Why are you wasting your time? And everybody's got an excuse. Everybody's got a reason. Oh, it's this, it's that. I can't afford it. I can't have time for it. Dude, I hear every fucking thing in the book. But when it comes back to it, nothing changes until you take massive action. So the number one thing that has to happen when you're going through the situation is you have to be able to regulate your emotions. You have to be able to regulate your emotions. That means that you have to be present with yourself and you have to understand what you're actually feeling. There's no way in heck somebody can actually regulate their emotions if they don't have the bandwidth, the emotional capacity for it. And the reason most of you don't have the emotional capacity for it, again, is just the way you were raised. You were raised, it was okay to just go off on somebody and yell and scream and whatever, and nobody corrected you. Or maybe your dad was a punisher and he beat the shit out of you. And so therefore your way of reacting was acting out of that anger, feeling like a trapped little boy, but now an adult body. And so when your wife confronts you, when all these things happen, you want to lash out, you want to scream, you want to hit something or hit her. And it's not okay. It's not okay. The strength that you have, the power a man has is not meant to be weaponized. I meet so many men every single day that have weaponized their emotions against their wife, against their kids, against their employer, against everything else. They have weaponized their emotions. And you get to choose today, do I want to be a guy who weaponizes my emotions for evil? Or do I want to be a guy who weaponizes my strength for good? Meaning that I take this passion, this desire in me for righteousness, for good things, for wanting things to be okay, that wanting things to be back to the way we're taking that and turning into power, like a proper, healthy power. That's the opportunity that lies before you. But that won't happen if you can't regulate your emotions. Number two, you've got to actually know what you're feeling in order to regulate your emotions. So you've got to use something I call the feelings wheel, feelingswheel.com, easiest thing you can go to. And it has there this wheel of emotions, if you will. And it starts with those high level emotions, anger, sad, depressed, whatever. Like these just typical happy, right? Typical emotions men feel. How do you feel? I feel angry. How do you feel? I feel sad. How do you feel? I feel happy. Right? Like those are the basic emotions that men feel. But your emotions aren't your feelings. Your emotions are that check engine light. Your emotions are the things that are telling you, hey, you're angry. Hey, you're sad. Hey, you're happy. Right? Those are just emotions that you're feeling. But what's underneath those emotions? So if your wife is coming at you and she's saying these things and whatever, you start to feel angry. But what's underneath the anger? Because the anger is just a tertiary emotion. It's just a layer of emotion. It's not the actual feeling. But when we go deeper and we can say, man, I feel disrespected right now, or I feel disillusioned with this conversation, or I feel at a loss for words. I don't really understand what you're asking of me. Can you be more clear? Because it feels like I'm being attacked, and I don't want to believe that about you, but this is what I'm experiencing right now. You see how different that sounds compared to your like, well, fuck you, or yeah, you know what? You always do this. Oh, don't start with me. You do the same thing. You do exactly what we're talking about right now. How many of you do that all the time? Why? Because you are children. You are little baby boys who need their asses wiped because you have refused to actually become a better man. And so you abuse your wife, you abuse your kids because, period. That's what it is. But guess what? The good news is you don't have to be that guy. You don't have to be him anymore. You could choose today to make a decision, to make a choice for yourself, to go, I am no longer going to be that man. I am no longer going to abuse my kids and my wife with my words. Some of you have no idea that you're even doing it. That's the sad part. You have no idea how emotionally abusive you are to your kids and to your wife. I grew up with an emotionally abusive dad. I know exactly what it's like. He did not think he was emotionally abusive. But as I studied in science and research and all these things and recognized my own feelings of shame and guilt that I had over all these years, recognizing he was very manipulative and very much narcissistic in the way he approached things. I'm not going to say an NPD or any of that stuff, but he definitely had narcissistic tendencies about him. And he was definitely an asshole when it came to how he treated me in many ways. Not just being mean, but saying things that were piercing to me. Now, a lot of you are doing that because that's what was said to you. That's what was done to you. But you haven't cried over it. You haven't dealt with the emotions of it. And because you haven't dealt with those emotions, what do? You fucking grunt. Every time I come home, this fucking house is a mess. What do? Fucking sit and watch TV all day? How come you don't clean for me? How come you don't, you don't do this shit? You do that because you have these expectations of her that you don't know how to fucking articulate. And instead of making her feel heard and understood, you attack her. And so then she attacks you. Oh, well, look at you, Mr. Blah, blah, blah. You just do this. And then you're like, oh, woe is me. You always say these mean things to me. And you're crying and you come reach out to guys like me and you're just like, my wife's so mean. I'm making light of the situation because sometimes it is, you have to be a little light about it. But guys, it's fucking real. This is the shit I see every day. And some of you are probably hanging up right now. Some of you are like shutting down right now because it's like, oh, this guy, no, he doesn't know my situation. My situation is unique. My wife's just mean to me. Listen, I understand what fucking mean is. I was married to a woman with borderline personality disorder for 17 fucking years. I understand what mean is. I understand emotional abuse, very much so. And I understand how I showed up in response to abuse. I became emotionally abusive in my response, and that's not healthy. And I learned years and years ago that is not the kind of man I want to be. I do not want to be triggered by somebody else's trigger. I do not want to be ruled by somebody else's feelings and emotions. This is why the first step in Thrive, the very first thing we help a man do is neutralize the power your wife has over you. Neutralize the power she has over you. Because in order for you to actually be healthy, you have to neutralize that. You can't be so reactionary to everything she says, does, and feels. You can't take everything personally that she says, does, or feel. It's impossible for you to be healthy if you don't have those boundaries in your life. This is why you're miserable. This is why you live the life you live. You don't have any boundaries. And a lack of boundaries is just a lack of value. That's all it is. If you lack boundaries, it's because you lack personal value. You don't value yourself enough to put boundaries in place to protect you from people in their situations. It doesn't mean you shun everybody, but it definitely means you don't allow them to walk all the fuck over you. So here's number 3. You got to slow down. You have to slow down. If you find yourself in that moment where you can't articulate the word, you can't get to the feeling, you have to slow down. Slowing down doesn't mean you're dumb. Slowing down, I still slow down. When I'm feeling those emotions, I have to slow myself down. I'll pause. I'll take 2-minute pauses sometimes in the middle of a conversation. You can ask my wife. And I have to do that because my brain is going like this, 100 miles an hour, like left, right, whatever. And it's like thinking through all the things, and I feel wronged, and I feel this, and it's all those things. And it's like, let's calm down. Let's get to a place of centering so that when I respond, it's not from a place of weakness, but from a place of strength. And I do that because, man, I love the freedom that comes in that. I'm telling you guys, you're missing out on the greatest thing that can be for you, which is emotional connection. If you can't have these conversations with your wife, you can never be emotionally connected. I don't give a fuck how good your sex life is. I don't care how great you are doing those things. It comes back to emotional intimacy. And emotional connection and intimacy only come when you can be emotionally connected to yourself. That's it. You can't be emotionally connected to your wife without you being emotionally connected to yourself. The level and the depth of your emotional connection with her is literally a byproduct of the emotional connection and depth that you have with yourself. So if you can't handle your big emotions, your own big feelings, your own anxieties, which we all have them every single day. I have them every single day. Been going through a thing in the last week from some stuff that's happened in our and inside of Empowered Man, and just feeling these emotions and feelings. And it's like, what is that? I need to identify. I need to understand what I'm feeling so that I'm not using it in a negative way. So I'm not weaponizing that anxiety against people or taking it out on people, right? And so we come to this place and we understand it and we slow down and we pause, take deep breaths, pause, go, hey, I need 10 minutes. I'm feeling very worked up right now and I need to take a break from this conversation so that I can have a healthy conversation with you. I'm telling you guys, you do this and it will change things. She might come after you. She might try to be on the attack. And you say, hey, Sarah, I hear what you're saying, but I need a break. I want 10 minutes to myself so I can reflect on the conversation. I don't want to say something that's hurtful or mean. I just need a little bit of time. That way you can then go process, go to feelingswheel.com, look it up on your phone, and go, this is the feeling I'm having right now. Now let me come back. I can't tell you guys how many times I've seen ruined marriages because of this shit right here. Some of you might even think this is trivial. Some of you might even think this is dumb or it's easy or whatever. But I'm telling you, so many women end up filing for divorce right here, right in this moment, right here. They don't have to go physically down to the lawyer's office. They file for divorce in their minds and their hearts when you stop connecting with them emotionally. That's it. And when you can't make them feel heard and understood, guess what? You might as well go write the check. You might as well go fill out the paperwork for her. I'm being fucking real as shit right now because somebody needs to hear this. You're so scared of doing something to make your wife go and file for divorce, but every time you cannot emotionally connect with her, every time she comes at you and says a thing to you, you get offended by it, you might as well go write the check yourself. You might as well go fill out the paperwork yourself because you are doing it to you. You're doing it yourself. It has to stop. You have to come to a place where you go, enough is enough. I am done being this man. I want to be a man who is empowered. I don't want to show up as a little boy anymore. I'm done with it. But that comes with you having fucking humility and recognizing you don't have all your shit together, and that's okay. Like, like the whole point of empowerment is not to be bulletproof. The whole point of empowerment is to be a man who can receive and give, who can take pain, but not give pain, but give love. And instead of receiving the pain and internalizing it, saying, I'm going to deal with it, I'm going to emotionally deal with it in a way that's healthy because how that hurt, but I'm still human. And instead of going back at you, instead of hitting you back, instead of punching you back, I'm going to take what you did and I'm going to tell you, hey, that hurt. That really hurt me. That didn't feel good. When you said that about me, that hurt my feelings. See, in school, if a boy said that, he was made fun of. He was beat up. Oh, you're a sissy. Oh, you're a little pussy ass bitch. So we were taught this hardness that isn't real. It's all fake. You look at every little bully out there, and they're all insecure little fucks. There's not one of them that are actually real men. I don't care who you are. I don't care how strong you are. That's why I have this statement. I say I eat alphas for lunch because I have these guys that come to me all the time and they, oh, I'm this alpha guy. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't care how many millions of dollars you make or how many girls you fucked. None of that shit matters. The fact is, you're a pussy ass little bitch. You think you're tough. You think you're hard because you're tough guy. Oh, tough guy. You're actually an idiot because real life, real women, real true love comes from being emotionally connected to other humans. That's what it comes from. And man, yeah, you could beat the shit out of me. I don't give a fuck. I mean, yeah, I don't want you to, but like at the end of the day, I know who I am and you don't. And that's the scariest thing to you. That's the scariest thing to a man, is to not know who he is and be in the presence of another man who knows who he is. Because man, that ruffles our feathers. Like, fuck. Who does that guy think he is? He knows who he is. You look at anybody that's hated in professional sports, Tim Tebow, one of the biggest guys who was hated. Why was he hated so much? Some people say it was his faith. Some people say it was because he sucked at quarterback. I think it was because he knew who he was and he didn't give a fuck what people thought. I've met the dude face to face, spent hours with him. He is legit as they come. And hearing his stories and watching him just be around other people, there was not a fake thing in him. And people were intimidated by that. People are intimidated by men with presence, because presence is weightiness, it's power, true power. We live in a world with false power everywhere. Think about social media, right? You can look on social media and see these couples who look like, oh my gosh, they're the greatest couple. Look at them. They're always having fun. They're beautiful. They're tan, they're toned, they're muscular, all this stuff. But deep down, what you don't know is they hate each other. Deep down, what you don't know is one's cheating on the other. Deep down, what you don't know is they fight every fucking day and they hate life together. But everybody on the outside looks at them and is like, oh my gosh, look at them. They're so amazing. Couple goals, couple goals. And it's all bullshit. Guys, this world needs more authentic men. It doesn't need men that are fake. It doesn't mean men who think they're alphas when they're really not. Because I think true alpha masculinity, to me, comes from humility. My greatest, the man that I look up to the most, name was Jesus. And I think that what made him a man more than anything was his humility and the power he had and the ability to come off a cross, but decided not to. Not trying to get all religious on you guys or preach to you or anything like that. But I look up to that. I admire that more than anything, because he could have said no, but he said yes. Even up there, people making fun of him said, hey, you're the son of God, come off the cross. And he's like, nope, I don't have to prove myself that way. Dude, that's a real man to me. So the fourth thing, you got to use your words. You've got to use your words. You can't grunt. You can't yell. You can't scream. You have to use your words. Slowing down, knowing what I feel. I feel disrespected right now. And using those words. Honey, when you speak to me in that way, I feel disrespected, is going to do something here. To most women. I'm not saying 100% of women, because yeah, there's some women that have mental health issues and they can't even understand once they get in a scrambled brain and there's no listening. But just a regular, normal human being, and you say to them, hey, when you speak to me that way, it makes me feel disrespected. They hear you. And they're like, oh, well, I wasn't trying to disrespect you. I'm sorry that I did that. And then you can say, I know, honey, that wasn't your intention, but that's what it feels like in the moment. What I'd like to do is have a healthy conversation around this subject so that both of us can share our points and hopefully come to an amicable solution that works for both of us. You really feel how like weird that sounds, right? Because you're like, who talks like that? Healthy people do. Normal, healthy people, that's the way they talk. Most of the world does not model that. You go watch the internet, YouTube, TV, whatever. Nobody talks like that. We're all taught this stupid bullshit. Just like I was talking to my wife earlier today, we were listening to country music and listening to these different songs and country artists. And I'm like, oh my God, all of these country music stars sound like the guys that come to me in my program. Like they have all the same problems. And it's like, my lady left me and all this shit. And it's like, oh my God, dude. It's like, well, no wonder you're so sad and depressed. You're listening to this shit all the time. Like, what the hell? Right? So you can't, yeah, I'm getting a little distracted there. Is you can't do that without using your words. You have to use your words. You have to be able to articulate for her what you're actually feeling. And the final piece of this, guys, I'll leave you with this, is give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. You don't have it all together. You don't. Nobody does. I don't have it all together. I think I'm a few steps ahead of most people. I'll give myself that. But if I think I've attained, if I think that I've got it all made and there's nothing wrong with me, then I have failed. Because I look at life as a consistent, continuous growth pattern. Like, I want to grow every single day. I want to get better every single day. And there are seasons of it where it's like low growth, and there's seasons of high growth. And there are seasons of growth in different areas of the five-dimensional man. You as a leader, you as a lover, you as a producer, you as a man, and you as a producer, friend, yeah, you guys know them. And in those areas, in those dimensions, it's like we want to grow in every single way. But that comes back to us and our desire to get out of our own heads and into our bodies, right? If you are in your head, that's where all the shit comes from. But you've got to get into your body. How do you get into your body? You center yourself. God, I hate using woo words. I hate using those kind of words, but it really does make sense when you think about it. Is centering myself is just like this, it's just taking time. It's just going, hey, I need a breather. I need to process this. I need to think about what's going on. I need to slow my words down and say, hey, what I hear you saying is this. Is that true? Or when you come at me like that, I feel disrespected. Or I feel like I got to be defensive. And I don't want to believe that about you because I want us to be able to have a good communication. Guys, I'm telling you, this will change your life. Some of you are on the brink of divorce because you don't have this shit right and you need help. First way you can get help from me is my 5-day challenge, empoweredman.co/5D-challenge. I think www. I'm gonna put the link in here. That's the first way you help. It's a 5-day challenge. It's $27. Easiest way you can do it. Anybody pretty much can get into that. The second way you can do it is by actually getting coaching and mentorship from me personally, as well as my team of coaches. That is a immersive experience called Thrive. If you are interested in that, I'm going to give you my booking link. It's empoweredman.co/book. I'm going to put that link in the chat here. I think we're putting it in the chat. Maybe it's not. Make sure, let me type it. Okay, good. And that's an opportunity for you to get on a call with me and go, let's make this shit real, dude. Like, too long. I've been watching your content, but I haven't made a move because I'm scared. I'm scared it's bullshit. I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to do it. That's usually the biggest one, is they're scared they can't make changes. But that's because they've never really leaned into accountability, and they've never been a part of a system like ours. They've never been a part of an environment like ours. And the other thing is usually the financial piece of it. Dude, we have financial options. We have ways to help make it affordable for most guys. Can't afford it for everybody. If you're broke, you're living on somebody's couch and you literally can't make ends meet, this isn't for you, and that's okay. Like, I'm not here to offend. I'm not offended by that. And you shouldn't feel ashamed of that. Go watch my 180 plus episodes. I've got 185 trainings or so free. I give away all the content. I'm not a content guy. I'm a coach. So I give away the content for free. What you're going to get in coaching is completely different. It's a whole different level. The coaching is meant to actually transform you. Watching a course won't transform you. It'll give you information, and information's good. But ultimately, that's not the thing that transforms you. What transforms you is getting with other men who can call you forward and go, hey, when you said it like this, that wasn't quite right. Here's how we want to change it. Oh, and when you're showing up like this with your wife, this is why she's doing that. This is the response you need to have. Like, we literally script out conversations for guys about a lot of things. Okay, you're about to have what I call a power triangle conversation with her. This is what I want you to own. This is how I want you to do it. This is what you want to say. Okay, good. I can do that. And giving them the actual like tool that they need to make that conversation. If that's where you're at, then I want you to book a call with me and talk. If not, if you're not ready for that, that's fine. I don't want you to try to do that if you're not ready. And I'll tell you, if I don't think you're ready, I'll tell you right away. There's a link to the 5-day challenge. Go do that. Make something happen today, guys. Some of you have been watching this. Some of you get on these lives every fucking week and you do it week in and week out, but you haven't taken action. Maybe you're trying this stuff, tinkering on your own a little bit on the side, and maybe you're seeing little improvements, but shit's about to hit the fan and you don't even see it. And that's the beauty of being a part of something like this, is you actually have the opportunity to have guys around you who can call you forward and go, dude, you're not seeing what's about to come. I can usually tell when divorce is right in the corner. I can usually tell when the marriage is actually over. And really, you need to focus. You need to shift your focus to you, because you're living a lie and you're living in a belief that's not actually happening. So there's the links right there. Go ahead and click on one of those. Take action today. That's my challenge to you. All right, guys. See ya.